and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's video, I want to show you how you can create a step function workflow using AWS SAM. If you're a CDK user, don't worry, there will be a similar one coming next week, so subscribe and enable all notifications and all these things that YouTube does to let you know when that video is up. This video is part of a step function series where I will be covering different type of concepts from beginners to more advanced related to step functions so you can get started working with them. And you can find the playlist link below. So let's get started and let's start building, because this is a video on building, is a video on how to create these workflows. So I will show you the SAM aspect. I will not focus a lot on the Amazon state language because that's something you can check in the documentation, in the definition of ASL. If you want me to make a video on ASL, you can always let me know in the comments. I'm not planning to, but I want to show you the SAM aspect, how you can call a state machine, how you can do the definition, how you can extend the workflow dynamically with infrastructure variables, how you can trigger the workflow from different events, how you can add different policies and things like that. So AWS SAM has a native integration with step functions, and we are going to use that because it simplifies a lot the way that we are creating that workflow. So we are going to use that. So for this demo, I will assume that all the resources in the state machine are already deployed in my AWS account. It's easier to work with. I will be creating some new resources, but others I will just assume that they are there because I don't want to get into a lot of mess. This demo will translate a file that is in S3 from English to Spanish using Translate, and it will send me an email when that's ready. You can find the GitHub link for this repo in the description box. So let's go to the code and see this in action. So I will go here, and this is basically an empty project. So let's create the template YAML, and I will be taking advantage of App Composer. So if you don't know what is App Composer, I have a video on that. I will leave you in the description box. But basically, it allows me to create the infrastructure visually. So I want to add step functions. So here I add a state machine, step functions, and we can give a name to it. So I will call it translate state machine here. And basically now I can save it and I can edit it in Workflow Studio. So this is something I talk in a different video, but you can do all this magic from here. So one thing I want is that this opens as external file. So this is something important when you're working with App Composer. So click that, do save, and then you will see that the state machine has an ASL file. If you don't do it, it will define it as part of your infrastructure, and that's confusing. So let's use this. So now we have it as part of the infrastructure, its own file, so we can go and work on it. So we can click here, edit in Workflow Studio. If you don't know what is this, I have a whole video on that, but I will open this. And because it's very zoom, half of the screen is not visible. Let's see if I can make it better. That's the problem of having very zoom Visual Studio Code. Things look weird. So here we have the Workflow Studio, and what I want to do is I want to build a state machine here. So the state machine will have multiple things. Let's delete this one. I will want to first get an object from S3. So we can get the file from S3. Then I want to translate that file. And for that, we are calling the translate. Then I want to store that result, output. Then I want to do some formatting. For that, I will be using a pass state. Then I want to call a lambda function. And then I want to send a notification. So let me make this configured everything properly so I can save it. And there's errors and all kind of things because I have not configured anything. So let me configure the ASL to make sense, and I can show you where we are going from here. So now I have modified a little bit the ASL to have what I want in the state machine. So the focus is the same. We are getting the file. We can see the here inspector from the input from the state machine. Then we are calling the translate on that text from the file. We are translating from English to Spanish. Then we are storing that translated text in a specific bucket. We are doing some kind of formatting here to create a URI of this S3 destination where we store it. Then we are creating a signed URL for that S3 URI, so then we can send it by email and we can open it. So this is a very simple state machine that does quite a lot of things, and we can basically now save it. There should not be any errors, and we can go back to our template. So here we have the state machine that we just created. Broop. We have the template that we just work with. So the template has let's make it bigger. The template has a type because the resource has a type because it's a state machine, someone. Then it has some properties. It has the login enabled, so that is always good. We want to enable it. Then we have some policies, and these are basic policies to allow basically X-ray trace, and we will add more here. Then we have tracing enabled, so we have X-ray enabled. Then the type is standard, so we have the two types, express and standard is a standard. Then we have the definition substitutions, and there is no value because we have not configured that yet, so we are going to do that. The definition of the state machine, that is that SL file that it just was created from us from the Workflow Studio. And then here is the log group that was created for us. So let's go and modify a little bit of these things so we can get something working. So here we have the translate bucket. So here we have the translate bucket, that is the bucket that we are translating, and that bucket has been already created. We can pass it as a parameter. So let's do parameters here, and let's put that bucket. And when we deploy this, we pass the name of the bucket. So that's something that will be here, and then we can make a reference to that parameter. So that's good. Then we have the transcribe bucket that is more of the same. This function is not there yet. Then we have the get signed URL function. And again, this is another function that I already have deployed in my account. So I can put it as a parameter, and we can get that reference there. And the same with the notification topic, and we can pass it in the parameters. So this is the ARN that we need. So let's pass that one. Good. So now we have the definition substitutions, and what this will do is we'll grab elements from our infrastructure, in this case, the bucket name, the function name, or the ARN from the topic, and it will substitute it from this array variables. So if we look in the definition of our state machine and we look for that translate bucket, we are using that $sign and open brackets translate bucket, for example, the name of the variable, and that will be substituted. So that's very handy. Another thing that you need, and this is very important, is the permissions. So in policies, we have this type of policies that has been created for us, but there is many more things that we need to add. So we need to give permission to the bucket to access this translate bucket. So we need to give permissions on the read and the writes. So the first one is on the on the transcribe bucket where things are going to be stored. That is this bucket here. So we need to give write and read permissions, and then we need to give write and read permissions to the other bucket. So let's add those permissions here. And for that is basically we can use some manage policies for this. So we are using YAML. It's very important to have the right indentation. We know this. Copy pasting sometimes is painful. And here you might be wondering that there is parameter that is missing, that is the transcribe bucket name. So let's add that as well in our parameters so we can send it when we deploy. And then another thing we might need is a policy for being able to invoke this function and also to put a message into this topic. So let's do that. Again, we use the manage policies. So we can publish a message in this topic, and then we can invoke this Lambda function. And what about translate? We need permissions to be able to call translate. And for that is very simple. We have this statement here that allow us to put elements in X array. And then we can create a new one that allow us to access translate. So this is how you can create these inline policies. Good. So now we have the permissions, we have the variable substitution, we have the state machine. One thing that we are missing now is being able to call this workflow when there's a new file in S3. So we need to basically create that event. And for that, we can use the same way as we will use with Lambda, the events. So we can add a new thingy here, a new property that it says event, and it's an S3 media trigger. The type is event bridge rule. Then we have the default bus, because that's where all the AWS services will put their messages. The source is S3, the object is created, and in the transcribe bucket in the folder validated. And this is basically the structure for our state machines. So now we can deploy and can basically put all these parameters. So when we are deploying, we can do SAM deploy guided. And when we are in the guided steps, we can basically put the parameters that we want. So we can put a step functions demo, and then we pick the region, and now we need to pass those configurations. So I will pass the configuration. I don't want to show you all my things because I use them everywhere, and I'll come back to you. But basically here you just put the name and you fill the whole form. So I will do that, and I will be back with you. So now it's deploying. I finished the configuration with the guided, and all the things are coming together. So we can go and see it when this is deployed, we can see it in the AWS console and see what happened. So we should have a new state machine there that we can work with. So let's wait for that to complete. It should be done in a few seconds, and then we can go to the AWS console and see how this looks. But the cool thing here is that you can always now keep on working with the app composer. So you can see here, for example, that the state machine now changed to have these different steps. So now you can see them in the app composer. You can also see that the state machine is invoked by an event bridge rule. And then if you click here, you can go to the Workflow Studio, and you can see the configuration visually for each of the steps. Everything that is in the ASL, you can change it here and it will change in the ASL. So this is really handy when you're working with SAM, when you're working with IDE Visual Studio Code, because you can have everything. So let's see if this is deployed. Yes, this is deployed. And we can check the AWS account. So I have here my state machine with the definition that we just created. Let's see, start the execution. We can also start the execution programmatically from the AWS CLI. I don't know what I have wrong. Yeah, I have not put the right input. So let me get fake input and we can test this. This is faking what the S3 will be sending us. So I just pass it here. So you can see here, this looks like an event bridge message that S3 will send. So the source is S3, account, the bucket, the object, and blah, blah, blah. And then I can start the execution and this should work. Yes, now it's getting the file, and basically we can see all the different steps and what is going on and the details and everything that you can see with step functions. From here you can see the state machine, that's it, and that's how you work with SAM. And that's the video for me today. I hope you like it. It was a video on how to build this. I will show you more or less the same with CDK in the follow-up videos. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. And if you want to get started with SAM and you don't know where to start from, I have a video about that. And you can find the playlist for all the step functions videos in here as well. And I see you in another episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao.